Okay, we'll start now. So, in this class, what we are going to do is we will take up a few PYQs pertaining to Sankhya Yoga system of Indian philosophy. If you remember, in last class, we have discussed the basic tenets of Sankhya Yoga philosophy, of first paper, Indian philosophy, and I told that some further important topics and in details we will take up in next class. Meanwhile, some requests have come from students that instead I can take PYQs of Sankhya Yoga. So that I'm going to take up today. As you know, PYQs of 2024 exam, I mean whole paper, basically first paper and second paper, I have already discussed and given model answers, and already the videos are also on YouTube in previous classes. So in this class, what I will do is I will take up the actual question paper of 2023 exam and 2022 exam. We will identify what are the Sankhya questions in those papers, and we will try to discuss and find out the model answers for that. Now, but before I do that, in another class, what I have done is I have discussed what should be the constituents of a good or a model answer for philosophy optional questions, which do come in UPSC. So before I go to discuss the Sankhya Yoga PYQs of 2023 and 2022, I want to explain and discuss the constituents of a good answer for philosophy optional questions. I feel that that will be very useful to the students who are going to appear in the exam this year and also in subsequent years, because once you understand what are the main constituents of uh, good answer, you will be able to appreciate also the good answers, and also you will yourself be able to frame the answers. So I first, before I take up the Sankhya Yoga thing, I will just try to explain this. Now, I have identified about 18 to 20 points, basically. And I just want to tell you and discuss about those points so that uh, when I start giving the answers, you are able to evaluate those answers on these parameters. And when you write your answers, whether it is in practice test or in actual exam, then also all these points are equally relevant. So now the first point is directive compliance. See, this is very, very important because we have to read the question thoroughly, understand what is asked, and then we have to reply. So we have to reply the actual directive of the question and not the topic, because sometimes the students do that mistake. They know a lot of things about uh, those topics and they start writing each and everything. And actually they forget what is has been asked and what is the essence of the question and what is the directive of the question. So this point basically is relevant to that extent. Again, break down the question, identify all limbs. If the question have 2, 3 parts, all parts have to be covered adequately. You cannot simply cover one part and think that your question has been answered. Then you have to follow, you have to understand the critical words, command of the question. For example, some questions it will be discuss. So there you have to give a balanced explanation. You have to give positive points also, negative points also. You have to first give exposition also, critical evaluation also. All those things will be covered in discuss. In fact, discuss, you can add your own views also in 1 or 2 sentences if you think it's appropriate. Then there is another directive, examine. Now, examine means identify causes, consequences, underlying assumptions. Here also, critical evaluation can be added, and also, basically, a balanced critique has to be given. Some positive points, some negative points, whatever critics have said can be mentioned. Then another directive is critically evaluate. So if question is asking critically evaluate, first thing you have to do is 60% exposition, 40% critical evaluation, and present both strengths and weaknesses along with reasoned conclusion. Reasoned conclusion has to be given in almost all the answers, whatever you write. So here also is equally important. Then match your content to the demand. Avoid off-topic elaborations. Very, very important. Allocate space based on the importance. For example, if it is discuss or examine, you can still include 25 to 30% critical evaluation. If it is critically examine or critically evaluate, then definitely you have to do it 60-40 balancing. So like that, you have to balance. Now, sometimes nothing has been mentioned, only explain or some sentence is given, elaborate. Then also, if you are able to, even if you are able to give some passing reference of some comparative thinkers, philosophies, or critiques, that adds value to the answer. So please do that. Now, second point is philosophical clarity and conceptual precision. Now, this is very, very important because unless your content is good, you are not going to get the marks. So first you have to understand the directive, but then after understanding, your content has to be good. So you have to basically define all key terms which you are using are asked, then avoid vague statements, write with logical and conceptual rigor, ensure no internal contradiction in argument. So that is very again important. And I mean, your points or paragraphs have to be in such a way that you develop the answer right from introduction to conclusion. So that also I have covered the next few points. So, but the point here is that whatever you write should be totally clear. Clarity has to be there, and concept should be clear as far as the philosophical topics are concerned. Then use of philosophers and doctrines. Name key thinkers relevant to the question. Quote paragraphs or signature doctrines. For example, if it is Descartes or mind-body problem, cogito ergo sum, tattvamasi, anatta in Buddhism, tattvamasi in Vedic, Vedanta. Then attribute ideas accurately to the text or traditions. This is also very important. See, wrongly don't quote. I mean, somebody has said something, but instead you are telling somebody else has said something. So that you should not do. So use of philosophers and doctrines should be there, and it should be correct. It should be relevant. It should be correct. Then balanced critique and dialectical engagement. So present both merits and limitations of the theory. Include counterpositions, because unless you compare with each other, then your depth of understanding will not be visualized. Then use dialectics, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, etc. to enrich your analysis. The next point is logically sound and insightful observation. Now, this is again very important because whatever you write, if it is logically sound, it has to be there, but it's insightful also. It will add value to your answer and you are going to get very good marks. So add personal insights where relevant, analogies, real life parallels, or thought experiments. Now, in all answers, it may not be possible, but definitely in some or few, it may be possible. Wherever possible, you do that. Then avoid cliches. For example, this is very relevant today. See, sometimes we feel that even if content is not good, or even if some sentences just to fill your word limit we are writing, you will be able to get marks. It's not going to happen because examiners are very, very intelligent. They understand, and accordingly, your marks will be reflecting. Then word limit. Now, this is again very important because recently I've evaluated some answer sheets in practice tests of some students, and I found that, I mean, many students in many questions are not following the word limit. You see, 10 marks question, 150 words should be there. 15 marks, 200 words or 225 words, definitely it should be there. 20 marks, 300 words should be there. And 10% variation, it's okay because if it is 150, so it can be 140, 160 or so. But if you write or finish in 100 words only, or if you are going to stretch it to 200, 250 words, so I mean, I mean, you are going, I mean, your marks are going to be deducted, as simple as that. So please follow the word limit, and high content density should be there. No padding has to be there, because examiner will understand that you are writing something unnecessary just to complete the word limit. So please understand that. Then comparative insight. Now this is very, very useful, and many students do not do in their answers, because if there is comparative insight is reflected in your answer, you are going to get quite good marks. So integrate East and West, for example, Indian philosophy or Indian philosophers to Western philosophers, or inter-school comparisons in Indian, maybe Vedanta or Buddhism, or in, let us say, Western philosophy, rationalism and empiricism. So that kind of comparison, if you are bringing, I mean, this is going to get good marks. Even passing reference will be very, very useful as far as examiners are concerned. Then contemporary or scientific linkages. Now, in some of the questions, this is very, very important. For example, philosophy of religion questions, or in some mind-body problem questions also, contemporary or scientific linkages have to be mentioned. And if you are going to mention, you are going to fetch better marks than other students. So, for example, I have given one or two examples. Neuroscience and anatta can be, I mean, because neuroscience is one field which can be mentioned in many questions. Then AI ethics and Kant, then probability theory is there. So all these things, I mean, you have to understand while preparing itself. But it should not be unnecessary. It must enhance philosophical reasoning, because forced reference, again, you are going to not get good marks. Then relating to larger philosophical problems, link issues to core philosophical concern, show structural command of philosophical systems. So this also, because practical application or practical linkage, if you are going to show, you are going to get better marks. But sometimes this can be done only in larger questions. For example, 300-word question is there, 20 marks question is there. So one or two sentences you can write. So in smaller 100 words, 150 words questions, please do not do that, because then you will not be able to cover the directive of the question. Then integration of Indian and Western traditions. This is again very important. Already in other way, it has been already said before also, because comparative insight, but here specifically Indian and Western traditions is it's being stressed. So insert organic comparisons, for example, neti neti and methodic doubt, karma and determinism. These are examples have been given. So reflects civilizational depth and comparative maturity. Then precise use of philosophical vocabulary. This is very, very important, because I keep on telling to students, whichever topic you study, please prepare a list of important terms, important words and phrases, philosophical terms, philosophical words and phrases which have been used there. Understand that and try to use them in practice test in actual exam also, because use of correct terminology is going to fetch you better marks. Explain rare terms also, because that is again a very, very important thing. Next point is structured flow and transitions. This is very important. So there has to be ideal structure right from introduction to conclusion, and there has to be logical flow. I mean, after introduction, then you start with exposition of the idea, then you come with critical evaluation, and then in a critical evaluation also, if both sides of arguments are there, you mention that, and then finally you come to conclusion, which should be very meaningful and adding to your whole answer, whatever you have written. So this is what has been written here. Now, how we will link the paragraphs? Use of flow markers in different paragraphs. However, thus, in contrast, consequently. So all these words will link one paragraph with other. So this also you can do it. Each paragraph must perform a distinct argumentative role. It should not be unnecessary, and it should not be repetitive. Same thing you cannot write into 3 different paragraphs. So please do that accordingly. Now, textual and scholarly anchoring. Now, this is very important, because you have to give important references whether it is critiques, whether it is philosophical texts or books, etc., written by the philosophers. So referencing texts is very, very important. Mention major commentators if appropriate. So this is also again very important, and this is going to fetch you better marks. Now next is ethical practical relevance. Now this basically is more relevant to ethics paper, but here I am mentioning just because sometimes it may be useful in second paper of philosophy also. So please do that if relevant. Otherwise, don't do. Then visual structuring tools is very important. Underline key terms, whatever important key philosophical terms and phrases you have used or names you have used, please underline those, because that is going to be very impressive for the examiner. His attention will be immediately drawn to those terms, and uh, perhaps you can get much better marks. Then use of bullets, headings only wherever required. Unnecessary, please do not do, because I have seen a few answer sheets of the students. They are always writing 1, 2, 3 numbering and all those things, not required. If there is a specific directive that enumerate or classify or specify, or then only you have to write 1, 1, 2, 3 or numbered answer or bullet marks. Otherwise, I mean, paragraph is okay. I mean, perhaps paragraph is much better answer. So paragraph wise, you have to write smaller paragraphs. Idea has to be developed right from introduction to conclusion in a very logical way. So you please do that. Then next is philosophical closure in conclusion. Now this is very, very important, because it has to be meaningful. It has to be summary of the whole answer, and it has to be very intelligently written. So for example, 1 or 2 examples I have given here. So for example, cogito marks not a certainty, but the beginning of method. Or Sunita is not nihilism, but the basis of compassion. So these are the concluding remarks or concluding closures, which are very, very philosophical and adding value to the whole answer. Then engaging introduction strategy. Now, in some answers, you can definitely try that your start of the answer should be quite engaging. For example, open with a sharp question, paradox, or philosophical quote. One or two examples you can see. What can we ever know for certain? If you put question mark and then you start the answering, then liberty without justice is merely privilege. So this kind of quotes or sometimes question marks will add value to your whole answer. And in starting itself, the attention of examiner will be attracted. Signal the philosophical conflict or historical backdrop in the first 2 lines. A good introduction sets the tone, scope, and complexity. Then another point is minimum concept maps. Now, in some questions it can be done, and most of the questions it cannot be done. So, but please see wherever required, you do that. For example, for complex systems like karma cycle, soteriology, 3 bodies doctrine, it can be done. So please do that accordingly. Then answer tempo strategy. First 4 answers has to be quite important. So please accordingly, you have to start and give more time, a lot more time in your examination. Then mid answers have to maintain pace. And finally, last few final answers have to be very, very strong as far as insights and comparisons, because if the examiner is very, very impressed in your first few answers, and if the same pace continues, and in last again he is further impressed, you are going to fetch excellent marks. So please do that. Then again, just I want to mention as a word of caution, avoid generalizations, do not overstate historical claims, avoid outdated colonial terminology. So please, whatever needs to be avoided, please avoid that. So accordingly, if you try to write the answers, you are going to definitely fetch better marks. Now, after this, what I will do is, I will take up the 2023 and 2022 questions pertaining to Sankhya, and then we'll try to discuss and find out what can be the model answers for that. Now, these parameters, 20 parameters I have given. Now, this is very, very important for your practice test, for your revision, for your preparation. But whenever I give answers also, then you can evaluate, or whenever some other coaching institute is giving the answers, you can still evaluate on these parameters. Now, this is very, very important. Now, let us go to SANKHYA PYQs for 2023 and 2022. As I already told, 2024 PYQs whole paper I have already covered in my previous classes. Videos are available on this YouTube channel where you are seeing. So you can anyway go through that. So 2023 and 22 I have not covered. So here I'm not going to take up full paper. I will take up only the related questions. Now, before I start, I just want to inform you, Sankhya is one of the important uh, topics in Indian philosophy. And usually 20 marks questions come in almost every year. Some year 30 marks questions are also coming. So now this is 10 marks question was asked in 2023. The question was 5th B. And as you know, in a exam, first and fifth questions are having a 10 marks question, 150 words, and there are five sub questions in that. So this is 5B question of 2022 exam. And I will read the question just to understand what is the directive and how we can proceed. If Purusha and Prakriti are two completely independent realities, then no relation between the two is possible. In the light of this statement, make a brief presentation of Shankar's criticism of Sankhya dualism. As you know, Sankhya dualism, Purusha and Prakriti is there. And this kind of problem comes in Western philosophy also, when there is mind-body problem, and here also in Sankhya philosophy also, where Purusha and Prakriti, two separate things, two independent realities they have enunciated. So now let us see. And this criticism is very, very strong criticism of Sankara, that if there are two different realities, how they will interact with each other. So there is the problem of interaction. So same thing, in the question it is asked in the light of statement, make a brief presentation of Shankar's criticism of Sankhya dualism. So what we have to do now, in the light of above sentence, we have to make a brief presentation of Sankar's criticism. Now, presentation of Sankar's criticism will also include a few critical points also. I mean, even if it is 10 marks question and 150 words, so we have to present what Shankar has told about Sankhya, how he has criticized. But then we have to also point out what Sankhya has replied, if any reply is there, and a few other comparative or critical notes or passing references if we can make. Because 150 words, we don't have much scope to do, but still we'll see how best we can write the answers. Now let us see what can be the ideal answer for that in the light of this discussion. Okay, Sankhya asserts two eternal independent realities, Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is pure inactive consciousness and Prakriti is unintelligent primal matter. So this is the first sentence that refers to Sankhya. And just to explain, beginning introduction, you can say, because we don't want to waste a number of sentences per introduction. So this one sentence is sufficient. And now we'll directly come to Sankar's criticism of Sankhya philosophy or Purusha Prakriti interactionism. Now Shankar in his Brahma Sutra Bhasya. So now here what we are doing, we are quoting from which text in which text Shankar has criticized. So this is again, because this is going to raise the standard of your answer. So if you do that. So Shankar in his Brahma Sutra Bhasya criticizes this dualism as metaphysically flawed. And if you see, philosophical terms have also been very intelligently used in this. If Purusha and Prakriti are entirely autonomous, no genuine sambandh. Now, Sanskrit words, I keep on telling to students, whenever you are dealing with Indian philosophy, do use original Sanskrit words. Whenever you are dealing with Western philosophy, you can use Greek or Latin, whatever original or English original words are there, original terms are there, do use that. So here, if Purusha and Prakriti are entirely autonomous, no genuine sambandha or relation can arise. How can Prakriti, devoid of intelligence, act purposely for Purusha's liberation? And how can Purusha, being niskriya, that is inactive, experience bondage? Sankar terms this Siddha Sambandha. So this is again another important term related to Shankara, Sanskrit term. Siddha Sambandha, an unestablished connection, which means an unestablished connection. So whenever you use such terms, you have to in brief explain the meaning also, so that it will further add value to your answer. And explains the illusion of duality through avidya, that is ignorance, which leads to adhyasa, that is superimposition. Liberation lies in realizing non-dual Brahma, where Purusha or Prakriti distinction is mithya. So this is Shankar's view and philosophy, and Shankar's criticism of Sankhya dualism. Now, as I told, we have to also mention if there are some defense from Sankhya philosophy or some other thinker's view, related view, if we can mention, because that is going to add a good value to the answer. Yet Vachaspati Misra defends Sankhya serialism by invoking Satkaryavad and asserting Prakriti's mechanical evolution. Thinkers like Radhakrishnan also appreciate Sankhya's explanatory scope for empirical diversity. Still, for Sankara, only Advaita's ontological dualism ensures coherence in causality, experience, and liberation. So now this completes the answer. You see, most of the characteristics which I told just now have been included, even though answer is 150 words. A small answer because you don't have much scope to experiment here, but still, you see, almost most of the elements are here, available here. I will come to next question. This is again 2023 exam question. So this is 2023. And this is 7C. This question is 7C. And this is 15 marks question. Up to 25 words we will write. Explain Chitta and its modifications in philosophy of yoga. So this is from yoga philosophy. And as you know, Sankhya Yoga are related philosophies. So they are almost studied together. So because most of the metaphysics of Sankhya is taken by the yoga. So accordingly, we studied together. So explain Chitta and its modifications in philosophy of yoga. Why does yoga philosophy prescribe cessation of modifications of Chitta? Give reasons in support of your answer. Now, let us try to understand the question. Now, this is a very interesting question. First part of the question is explain Chitta and its modifications in philosophy of yoga. Second part of the question is why does yoga philosophy prescribe cessation of modifications of Chitta? So now there are two parts, and as I earlier told, when a question has multiple parts, each part has to be addressed adequately. Because if you only write about one part and leave other part, you are not going to get full marks, or you're not will be evaluated on full marks basically. So this we should understand. Here two parts are there questions, both parts should be covered. So in first part, we have to explain Chitta and its modifications. Second part, we have to explain why yoga philosophy prescribes cessation of modifications of Chitta. And we have to also mention, because the command is explain or why it does, so we can also mention some critical views, some evaluatory views, etc. in our answers. So now let us see, we have to reply this in 15 marks, 25 words, and this will be evaluated on 15 marks. Now let us see what can be the answer. In Patanjali's yoga philosophy, now first part we are starting. In Patanjali's yoga philosophy, Chitta is the internal organ of consciousness comprising manas, buddhi, and ahankara. Though unconscious, it reflects the light of Purusha, enabling cognition. However, Chitta is constantly modified by vrittis, which veil Purusha's true nature and cause bondage. As per Yoga Sutra 1, 5 to 11, vrittis, so here see this reference has been quoted because most of the Patanjali's yoga philosophy, Patanjali has written Yoga Sutra, so it is from the Yoga Sutra. So accordingly, it has been quoted. The verses also has been quoted, which verse, which slok it has been taken. So as per Yoga Sutra, Vrittis are fivefold: Pramana, Viparyaya, Vikalpa, Nidra, and Smriti. These are all Sanskrit terms, you know. These fluctuations generate false identification with Prakriti. Hence, Patanjali defines yoga as yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So, this is a definition of yoga given by Patanjali. This is contained in Yoga Sutra 1.2. Cessation of these modifications, that is meant by yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta vritti nirodha means cessation of these modifications. When vritti cease, the mind becomes as transparent as a crystal. That is Spatik Mani Nyaya, reflecting Purusha without distortion, leading to Kaivalya. Now, see, first paragraph, what is, if you see the question again, explain Chitta and its modifications. So, first paragraph explains that. And second paragraph, why does yoga philosophy prescribe cessation of modifications? So, second paragraph explains that. However, this explanation also will be further continued. Now, let us see. Commentators like Vyasa and Vachaspati Misra explain that Nirodha dissolves avidya, allowing liberation. Carl Jung, another modern philosopher, appreciated this as a method of deep psychic integration. Now, here up to this point, the answer exposition has been covered. Now we'll take up the critical views. However, Advaita Vedanta maintains that jnana, that is knowledge of Brahma, liberates. Nirodha is preparatory. Buddhist, again Buddhist critics, Abhidharma emphasizes mindful observation, not suppression. Daya Krishna critiques Nirodha as impractical in dynamic life. Despite such concerns, now we are going to concluding part. Despite such concerns, yoga's emphasis on ethical purification, disciplined introspection, and metaphysical clarity offers a coherent and experiential path to disentangling consciousness from Prakriti. So basically, how liberation takes place, or I mean, basically, yoga prescribes a path to liberation. So this is the meaning of this. Now, this completes the answer. Now we'll go to another 2023 itself. So let us see 2023, as I told, 15 plus 15, 20, 30 plus 40 marks question has been asked from Sankhya Yoga. As far as, but this question 8B, if you see, only half of the question is from Sankhya, half question belongs to Nyaya. So accordingly, if you see, so roughly about 30 marks question comes from Sankhya Yoga in 2023. Now, this question is, write a note on Nyaya notion of Pragbhav, that is prior non-existence. How does this notion help Nyayiks in defending their position on causation against the Sankhya view of causation? Critically discuss. Now, first thing, Nyaya views of causation you have to explain in light of Pragbhav, and then you have to explain how they defend against the Sankhya view of causation. And this whole thing has to be critically discussed. So 40%, that is out of 225 words, 40% has to go to critical evaluation and 60% has to go for exposition. So now let us see how we'll do that. In Nyaya philosophy, Pragbhav refers to the prior non-existence of an effect before its actual origination. So one more thing I just want to tell to all the students, see, as I told in the beginning itself, that you have to underline important phrases and words. So here, while presenting, what I'm doing is, I have already made in my notes those words and terms bold one. So if you are able to understand to that extent that those terms necessarily needs to be underlined, because the examiner has to, his attention has to be attracted to those words directly. So please do that. So in Nyaya philosophy, Pragbhav refers to prior non-existence of an effect before its actual origination. It ends the moment the effect is produced and is one of the four types of abhav or non-existence. This notion underpins Asatkaryavad, because Asat Karyavad was the theory of causation given by Nyaya Vaisheshik. So this notion underpins Asat Karyavad, the Nyaya view that effect does not pre-exist in the cause, but is a genuinely new emergence. Now this is the Nyaya view. Nyayiks like Vatsyayan, Udyotkara, in his reference called Nyayavartika, and Jayant Bhatta in Nyaya Manjari. So these are the books written by them, and these are the philosophers of that school, Nyaya school, argue that recognition of Prabhav validates that effect is temporarily absent and produced, not manifested. So this is the Nyaya view. A pot, for example, does not exist before the conjunction of clay, wheel, and potter. Its production marks the end of its prabhav. Causation involves samvai, asamvai, and nimitta. So this is again Nyaya view. Karanas leading to observable transformation. So till now we have described Nyaya view of causation. Now let us see what is the Sankhya's view and how Sankhya has criticized Nyaya view. This view counters Sankhya Sat Karyavad. As per Sankhya of Ishwar Krishna is philosopher, Sankhya is book. So Sankhya philosopher Ishwar Krishna has written Sankhya, and this is very, very important book as far as Sankhya system is concerned, which posits that effect pre-exists latently in the cause. So this is Sat Karyavad. Proponents argue that this avoids creation ex nihilo and maintains causal continuity akin to Aristotle's potential actual model. So here we are referring Aristotle also. Please see that, because cross system references are going to add great value to your answer, and you are going to fetch very good marks. Please do that. Then in next paragraph, we will try to relate or try to refer modern scientific things also, because here in the theory of causation, modern science is also equally important. So modern physics complicates Nyaya's view stance. Quantum field theory permits particles to emerge from vacuum states, suggesting effects arise from fluctuating potentialities, not absolute absence. So if you see modern physics, more it is akin to more Sankhya's philosophy, Sat Karyavad, rather than Nyaya Vaisheshik philosophy. So this also is going to enhance the value of your answer. Yet Prabhav upholds Nyaya's empirical realism that causation entails observable, novel production grounded in logic, perception, and pluralistic atomism. So this is a conclusion, essence of whole Nyaya's philosophy of causation. Now we will go to 2022. 2022 again will fifth A question: examine and evaluate the proofs given by Sankhya philosophy to prove the existence of Purusha. Now this is very, very simple question, but the command is examine and evaluate. So you have to devote 30 to 40% for critical evaluation also. So first you have to list out what are the proofs given by Sankhya philosophy for existence of Purusha, and then we have to examine and evaluate also. And this you have to do in 150 words. So now this is not that easy because number of words are limited. So you have to write a lot. So you have to write very intelligently. Now let us see what can be the answer. Sankhya in Ishwar Krishna's Sankhya, because as I told, Ishwar Krishna Sankhya is very, very important for Sankhya philosophy. Ishwar Krishna is the proponent. Sankhya is one of these very important book which systematizes whole Sankhya philosophy. Offers 6 Anumana Hetus to establish Purusha Siddhi. So these are 6 proofs he has given. Now that we have to list now. But remember, we have to write in 150 words, so we cannot elaborate, because if you start elaborating, you will not be able to critically evaluate that, and directive is critically evaluate. Now let us see. First is jnana that cannot arise from jad prakriti. So this is first. Second is bhogya rupa word implies a bhoktra. So therefore Purusha is there. Third is a drashtra is needed to observe modification. Therefore Purusha is drashtra. Fourth is Vivek Jnana proposes a knower, and he's a Purusha. Fifth is Bandha Moksha requires an experiencer, which is Purusha. Then sixth is Pararthatva. Prakriti acts for Purusha. So these 6 Anuman Hetus have been given by Ishwar, Krishna and Sankarika as proof for Purusha's existence. Now let us go to critical evaluation quickly. Critically, Shankara in his Brahma Sutra Bhasya, again we are quoting the book of Shankaracharya, rejects this dualism as involving Asiddha Sambandha, no proven link between Niskriya Purusha and Chesta Yukta Prakriti. These are Sanskrit terms. If you are using these, you are going to fetch much better marks. Gaudapada, another philosopher, dismisses duality as Maya, while Nagarjuna and Dignaga, they are Buddhist philosophers, replace the self with Kshanik Vijnana. Moreover, attributing Pararthatva, other directness to unconscious Prakriti, risk anthropocentrism. So these are the critical views of various systems in Indian philosophy, Buddhism and Vedanta Sankara mostly, which are very, very severe critique of Sankhya system. Nonetheless, Sankhya's Niriswara relational metaphysics, Niriswara means there is no God. So in Sankhya's metaphysics, God is not existent. So Niriswara rational metaphysics grounded in Anumana and experience remains one of the earliest systematic affirmations of a distinct conscious self in Indian philosophy. Now let us go to next, 5C. Now this again, 5th question, C part, 10 marks question, 150 words. Now the question is, discuss the nature and different stages of Samadhi as per Patanjali Yoga and examine the role of Iswara in it. So now this question, if you see very intelligently, it has been written, there are 3 parts in this question. First is discuss the nature and different stages of Samadhi. So first is nature of Samadhi, then different stages of Samadhi, and then third part is examine the role of Iswara in it. So in 150 words, you have to write all the 3. Nature of Samadhi, different stages of Samadhi, and role of Iswara has to be examined. Examined means again, you have to write a few critical points also if relevant. So this is very, very, in a way, tough question in that sense, because in 150 words, you have to accommodate all 3. Nature, then second is stages, and then role of Iswara. So all these 3 and role of Iswara has to be critically or examined. So basically that also is an important directive. Now let us try to see the answer. In Patanjali Yoga, Samadhi is the 8th limb of Ashtanga Yoga, where Chitta Vritti sees and Purusha is revealed. As per Patanjali's Yoga Sutra 1.17.18, it is of 2 types. First is Sabija Samadhi, with seed involving Vitark, Vikara, Ananda, Asmita. All these are Sanskrit words. Second is Nirbija Samadhi, seedless, where even latent sanskaras dissolve. This leads to Kaivalya, the isolation of Purusha from Prakriti. So isolation of Purusha and Prakriti is Kaivalya basically in Yoga and Sankhya philosophy. Iswara prescribed in Yoga Sutra 1.24 as a Vishesh Purusha beyond Klesha, Karma and Sanskara aids the yogini via Ishwar Pranidhana. So basically Ishwara is for aiding the yogis in attainment of Samadhi. So this is the role of Ishwara described in Yoga Sutra 2.45. Vyasa and Vachaspati Misra emphasize Ishwara as an ideal for concentration and surrender. However, now since the directive was examine role of Ishwara, so now we have to mention a few critical points also. However, critics like Sankara view Patanjali's Ishwara as a non-creator and thus inferior to Brahma. Others see it as a symbolic, not ontological. Still, within yoga's framework, Ishwara offers ethical anchoring and meditative steadiness. This is the role of Ishwara. and critically behave exams. So as you see, in 2022, only 20 marks questions were asked. In 2023, 30 marks questions were asked. So this completes the presentation as far as the PYQs of both the years 2023 and 2022 is concerned. 2024 I have already covered in earlier lectures. So there you can see. Now, thanks a lot for watching today's video. We'll meet again in next class with next topic of Indian philosophy, which is perhaps Vedanta will try to cover next, and then we'll try to see what are the PYQs for that. So thank you for watching this.